A common theme that you will notice on today's episode of the Zach Kroll Sports Podcast is even though it's only week 4 and we're going to be entering week 5 of the NFL season, I had a lot of predictions on each team going into the season. And part of what makes the NFL the best sport, in my opinion, is that you could have your opinions based on teams and what they have done in prior years and the history of the head coach. But all of a sudden, you're watching the game on TV, and especially when things don't go the way you're expecting, like what happened Sunday at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles when the Rams and the Cardinals played, and the Rams were coming off, in my opinion, the most impressive football game that we have seen a team play so far this season. The Buccaneers are the defending Super Bowl champions, and the Rams just went at them. I really don't think that we've seen a team so far this season play as complete of a game as the Los Angeles Rams played on Sunday. And going in to this one against Arizona, they were 3-0, and most people, including myself, did label the Los Angeles Rams as the best team in the NFL. Matthew Stafford, a huge improvement over Jared Goff, really expanding the Sean McVay offense. So the Rams, they, going into this game, had people excited, and a lot of people consider them to be one of the best teams in the NFL. The Arizona Cardinals, on the other hand, this is an interesting team because Arizona, if you were to just watch their highlights so far this season, you would literally think they were the best, most exciting team in the NFL. And I'll admit, Kyler Murray is an absolute stud. He's legit. He is in that conversation, in my opinion, of the best young quarterback in the NFL. I think we could all agree, as of right now, based on everything that he has accomplished in the postseason, Mahomes is number 1. But Justin Herbert, who we're going to get to a little bit later in today's show, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. I would even consider Joe Burrow to be not too far off from that conversation. Kyler Murray is an elite quarterback. We've seen flashes of some of the things that he's been able to do so far this season, but throughout 4 games, he has played probably the best, most complete 4 games any quarterback in the NFL has played so far this season. And it's frustrating because last year for Arizona, they actually started off the season really well. I don't think they have popped the same way they did this season, because right now you're watching Arizona, especially after what they were able to do on Sunday to the Los Angeles Rams, and you're seriously asking yourself after 4 weeks, is Arizona all of a sudden the best team in football? And you look at this roster, right? You have Kyler Murray, you have a couple good running backs in Chase Edmonds and James Conner. DeAndre Hopkins hasn't even gotten going yet. He looks a little banged up, and that's the scary thing for Arizona. They bring in A.J. Green, who I'm not going to lie, looked washed over the last couple years in Cincinnati, but he looks rejuvenated. He's making plays. Christian Kirk, Rondale Moore, they're getting Max Williams involved. The Arizona Cardinals offense is hitting on all cylinders. I also believe the addition of Rodney Hudson, a pro's pro at center, anchoring that Arizona Cardinal offensive line, he has made a big difference. But overall, I was impressed with the physicality the Arizona Cardinals were able to show in this game against the Rams. Part of the reason why going into the season I was a little down on the Arizona Cardinals was because we all know, right? The NFC West is such a tough division. We all labeled it to be the best division in the NFL. And throughout the first 3 weeks of the season before this game was played, the Rams lived up to the hype. The 49ers are a team that is actually going to go to the desert next week to play Arizona. It's still unknown who is going to be under center for San Fran right now, but I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of worried about the 49ers. I'm not getting some great vibes out of Kyle Shanahan and the way that team is feeling right now after they really couldn't do anything offensively against a Seattle defense that is supposed to be super vulnerable. Russell Wilson just took over that game. And Arizona, throughout the first 4 games of the season, have shown that even though their offense is really good, they can win games in multiple ways. Their defense has been really good. And last year, their defense started off the season great. Chandler Jones got hurt, and they weren't really able to recover. And their offense was a little bit inconsistent, especially in the second half of the season. after Kyler Murray got hurt, he still played, but he clearly wasn't himself. The Cardinals fell apart. They lost back-to-back games to a 49er team that was being led by C.J. Beathard and a Rams team that had John Wofford at quarterback, and Kyler just clearly wasn't himself, and the defense wasn't healthy without Chandler Jones. But this year, with the additions of J.J. Watt and rookie Xavier Collins, Byron Murphy is legitimately turning into one of the best corners in the NFL. His pick six changed the game against Jacksonville. And here's the crazy thing for Arizona, right? Even though they deserved credit for being 3-0, and they looked really good week one, absolutely dominating the Tennessee Titans, there was never really a second in that game in Nashville that you even considered Arizona would lose. But the Cardinals in week two, they should have lost to the Vikings. The difference in that game was their kicker, Matt Prater, was able to hit a 62-yard field goal, and the Vikings kicker, Greg Joseph, when he was given a chance to win the game with a 37-yard kick, he couldn't come through, and Arizona was really struggling with the Jacksonville Jaguar team that we could all agree at this point isn't very good, and that game turned quickly on the Byron Murphy pick six. Not going to lie, before then, when Cliff Kingsbury, a guy who, to be honest with you, was another reason why I was a little bit skeptical on Arizona going into the season, like, he has never won a big game in his life before Sunday. I understand Arizona beat Seattle on a Sunday night game last year, but that was what, week 5? And what did they end up doing after that win? Nothing. Now, after this win, there's some realistic expectations with the Arizona Cardinals as a team that could be the best team in the NFL, and a team at minimum should win a playoff game or two. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not only saying this after what they did to the Los Angeles Rams, but I'm looking at this division. I'm looking at San Francisco. They are just inconsistent sometimes, and Jimmy Garoppolo, I just don't think is the answer at starting quarterback. He won them the first 2 games against teams that San Francisco was consistently better than, in Philadelphia, in Detroit. Week 3, he looked like he had won the game for San Francisco, but one team had Aaron Rodgers, a bad man at quarterback that could make plays, and Jimmy Garoppolo, let's face it, he made a couple mistakes throughout the course of that Packer game that blew it for San Francisco. In the game against Seattle, the Seahawks just had the better playmaker at quarterback, and I love Trey Lance. I think he's going to be a really good player in this league going forward, but there's a reason why Jimmy Garoppolo was the starting quarterback in week 1 of this season. Maybe Kyle Shanahan just doesn't believe in Trey Lance to play right away. And in regards to the Rams, like, look, I still think they're one of the best teams in the NFC. I still think Matthew Stafford could get this team to the promised land and make the Rams a winner. But at the same time, he has some Brett Favre-like attributes to his game. When the Rams are losing, he's going to be throwing the ball all over the field and is really prone to mistakes. I was impressed how in this game, from start to finish, the Arizona Cardinals were able to match the Rams physically. And when we look at the Rams, we know just how talented they are on the defensive side of the ball with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. And I think sometimes just that intimidation factor of Aaron Donald will result in the Rams showing up and intimidating their opponent and taking advantage of their mistakes. They're a team that shows up expecting to win football games. And over the last couple of years, I don't think Arizona on the defensive side of the ball has been able to match up with teams like the Rams on defense and teams like the San Francisco 49ers and that defense that was really good enough to carry them to a Super Bowl. The Cardinals, I don't think, have been able to match other teams from a physical perspective until Sunday, where they just showed up and from start to finish in that game just punched the Rams in the mouth. And when you have a quarterback like Kyler Murray that could make all of the plays, he is so dynamic. The Cardinals are definitely a threat. And I think in both conferences right now, we're really seeing they're pretty wide open, because the 2 best teams in the NFC right now might just be Arizona and Dallas. 2 teams that going into the season, it was totally reasonable to have some expectations that could be high, but at the same time, they had to have a limit based on the clear weaknesses that these teams showed last year. Arizona and Dallas are kind of similar in a way for me because on paper, they look really good. Their offenses should be explosive, but do we trust their head coaches? Do we trust their defenses? And do we just trust them to come ready to play game in and game out? And in what could have been the biggest game of Cliff Kingsbury's career up to this point, in my opinion, I understand he had a winner-go-home game last year, Week 17. He could have knocked the Rams out of the playoffs, but Kyler Murray got hurt in that game. It was clear Arizona, once that happened, didn't really have a chance. And one thing I will say, even though I'm not the biggest Cliff Kingsbury fan, he has had Arizona improving throughout each of his 3 seasons to start his NFL coaching career. He got rid of Josh Rosen after 1 year. He could have moved on from the number 1 pick in Kyler, traded that, and built around Josh Rosen, but he knew that Kyler was his guy, and he's a good offensive mind. Cliff Kingsbury has never built a winner. He's never coached a team really with a great defense, but maybe that changes this season. And the Arizona Cardinals, even though they play in a tough NFC West, and I do believe throughout the course of the season, that division is so good and so competitive that some of those teams are going to be beating each other up. And I don't know if Arizona is going to be able to go undefeated and be a 1 seed. But at the same time, they are one of the best teams in the NFC right now, and they really outshine the Rams in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium, home field. Crazy stuff for Arizona going on the road and beating the Los Angeles Rams, and Kyler Murray might just be the front runner right now for NFL MVP, and I can't wait to see what the Cardinals and the Rams do next time around. Cliff Kingsbury really out-coaching and out-executing Sean McVay in a big game is crazy stuff. Look at the upcoming schedule for Arizona right now. They're sitting at 4-0. Their next 4 games, home against San Francisco, at Cleveland, home Houston, home Green Bay. So they're going to have some big home games against San Francisco and Green Bay. Can they use that home field to their advantage and maybe ride it all the way to an NFC West title? We shall see. I don't necessarily know how good the Arizona Cardinals are in terms of their possible Super Bowl hopes and what are they going to be able to do in January, because ultimately that's what matters. However, it's hard for me right now when I look at them to not say this is one of the best teams in the NFC. They are absolutely a Super Bowl contender, and even though I'm not the biggest fan of Cliff Kingsbury, this offense and the way this team has shown up to each and every game so far from a physical perspective might just make them a threat and one of the best teams in the NFL. Props to the Arizona Cardinals just going on the road and obliterating a division rival in the LA Rams.